The title of this video does not lie, and hopefully this video as it clears up some topics people were confused with about the game. Though I'm saying right now that you should be upset Missing Link got cancelled. That's how I'm prefacing this whole video essay thing, and I'll try my best to articulate this turmoil of emotions I feel in ways that still feel easy to understand. Kingdom Hearts Missing Link was supposed to be a 3D Kingdom Hearts title set in the time frame between Union Cross and Dark Road. A story-centered title where you follow your custom-made character on a near journey through a familiar setting. The gameplay and combat was in the middle ground between Kingdom Hearts 3's movement and combat abilities, and Dream Drop Distance regarding new commands. Characters could upgrade their commands, named pieces, in similar fashion to how commands were leveled up in Birth by Sleep or recoded. And Keyblades could also be upgraded similar to what we saw in Union Cross and later 3. Given that this game had a character creator, there were also cosmetics and tons of ways to customize your character, from your voice, build type, hairstyles, to RGB sliders for elements like hair and clothing color. And you were able to select colors for individual sections in clothes if you so desired. Accessories that would modify your stats and grant you passive abilities like those in the first, second, and third game were also visible to select and would have been separate from your apparel. The game took place in two core loops. While roaming around Scala at Kylum, you had the option to play through the story and clear special challenges. Most of these things would have required you to get stronger, which leads to the second site, the Astral Dimension. Here, you roam the digital projection of the real world, hence the game being marketed as a GPS action RPG, fighting Heartless, collecting pieces and gathering materials to strengthen your gear, as well as other things. Important to note is the addition of the Growth Log, which would have tracked down elements that you collected in the Astral Dimension, giving you passive boosts the more you kept completing the Growth Log. This game also featured multiplayer, the first to do so since Birth by Sleep on the PlayStation Portable. By grouping with people around you, you were able to make parties of 3 to adventure together in the Astral Dimension. While in battles against Heartless or against Peace Holders, your party companions were controlled by the CPU, like party members would control in other 3D RPG titles. In raid battles, everyone was player controlled, and up to 6 people were able to group together to fight big Heartless bosses like Behemoth or Darkseid. Now that we know what it was, here's me telling you why it mattered. Let's first address the platform it's going to be released on, mobile. You may be inclined to dismiss it, and we'll touch on that aspect later on, trust me. But there's an important aspect to mobile that people don't mention, which is reach. Missing Link, being released for free on iOS and Android mobile devices, was going to have immense reach, the biggest ever for a game of the aforementioned scope. By making it free, you basically create a free sample of how the series play without making your potential players commit to a heavy investment. And the Kingdom Hearts series is a serious investment. Having to purchase current or last generation hardware, both compilations, Kingdom Hearts 3 with the Remind DLC, and Melody of Memory. If you're on PlayStation, it gets a bit easier thanks to the all-in-one package bundle, already taking care of 60% of that investment, but you still need the PS4 or the PS5 to start. And most players out there do have the platform and the titles and dismissed Missing Link by virtue of it being a mobile game. But not everyone has the means to get started with Kingdom Hearts like that. Standing on that ground gatekeeps potential new fans from the chance they would have had. And that's also true for other titles in the mobile scene that are or were free. Look at Pokémon TCG Pocket, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, Mario Kart Tour, Sonic Dash, Mega Man X Dive. The appeal of these games is that they're light experiences for the franchises they represent. They're all seen as lesser from being on mobile, but they do more good than harm by granting those without money the chance to play a game of their favorite franchise on a platform within their reach. And if you don't believe me, that's exactly the same argument cited by the development team behind Persona 5 The Phantom X. They understand that many out there want to immerse themselves in the world of Persona 5, but don't have the means to do so, and a title like this serves to bridge that gap and give everyone a fair chance. And Missing Link was very generous, giving these players a chance to get accustomed to the combat with auto mode. By letting the game play itself, those without experience would be able to see the core combat in action and take control of it little by little the more familiarized they get with the systems. Getting used to them eventually would motivate these players to make the investment, resulting in new blood playing the rest of a franchise. There was high customization in how you were able to play the game too. Controller support, UI layout customization, portrait or landscape. The game offered flexibility to ease their new players in, while also offering those experienced enough ways to appease their needs, and everyone won in that scenario. The second positive point is that one aspect people had a problem with: GPS. By just saying it was Pokemon Go but Kingdom Hearts, the disingenuous comparison permeated into the minds of many to contrast its experience to what Missing Link was. And I don't blame you for that, but you don't need me to say again how disingenuous that comparison is. GPS games have been consistently dominated by Niantic, to the point where all of them feel exactly like carbon copies of the first game, which was Ingress. It got to a point where every Niantic game felt exactly like the last, just Ingress with a different skin. Here's Pokemon Ingress, here's Monster Hunter Ingress. The only one that didn't blend to those stipulations was Pikmin Bloom, and that one's just Strava mapped the game. You can see how the GPS gaming scene had little to no variety, and how Missing Link was going to bring in a new type of experience to spice things up. Activities in the Astral Dimension were not bound by what landmarks you had around you. Those activities were instead generated the moment you jumped in, with some things like treasures and raid bosses being set to specific locations, not related to important places in the real world. The Astral Dimension was also not required to be traveled in real time either. Players could turn on touch mode and walk around and do stuff in the Astral Dimension without having to leave their homes. A first for GPS titles. Evidently there was a cost associated. You couldn't do everything in touch mode for free, having to rely on the action points you gathered to access battles, restoration points, treasures, all that stuff, and those could have been tinkered more to appease those apprehensive enough to not give a chance to those systems. It's all a matter of perspective. Now that we got over the things I believe are the most valid reasons why you should be mad about the cancellation, let's address the bad stuff. The things people were actually concerned about, and that is, well, gacha and monetization of free games in general. Everyone has a problem with gacha. I'm not one to cover my ears and eyes and say nonsense to avoid it. I too have a problem with gacha. But much like how Pokemon Shuffle says at its title screen on mobile, you can play this application without paying money. I've always been more judging of how a game plays over how its monetization is made. And I played the good, I played the bad, and I can tell Union Cross definitely wasn't fair when it came to both sides. It's the reason people within the community were so apprehensive when it comes to making it again. I completely understand that, and I also feel like things would have been way better had the game not featured any gacha or violent monetization either. I can shake on that. However, just downplaying what could have been great just for the gacha alone is disingenuous, which I'm still willing to defend, especially so for Missing Link, given how pieces were not exclusive to the gacha. Sure, you could put in the money right away to get that sweet 10 pull immediately, just as you could just save your temple tickets, which some were gifted to the beta players. You could also just collect them from the Astral Dimension. There were plenty of piece holders out in the open, treasures who were just some treks away from giving you rewards. Raid participation also granted you goods, some even exclusive to raids. Point is, there were more ways to acquire pieces than just pulling for them, but people had the pretenses and biases of how Union Cross handled its gacha and assumed that said methods would creep their way again to Missing Link without even understanding how different they were. Union Cross had no real free medals. Your obtained medals for playing the game were scarce and downright useless. Gift medals were rare, you could even miss getting them, and in general they weren't as good for what they were worth as the ones in the specialized banners. Union Cross wanted you to engage with the gacha, because there was no other way. Free player or not, you just had to engage with it, and there was no way around it. People need to realize that the systems of both titles, while similar in surface, were different enough so that both whales and free players could stand in common ground. And also, just remember that there's like 70 other ways that you could earn money from a game like this. One of those being cosmetics that don't really alter how the game feels to play, only how you look in it. It's completely unintrusive. I'd like to close off this essay with my personal thoughts. I'm sad that I won't get to share this experience with you all. For the 3 years since its reveal, it was my most anticipated title ever. I fell in love with Union Cross and its character expression. I played a lot of it with my wife and friends. When that game closed off, it was hard to say goodbye, and it was hard to find a new game like it. When Missing Link was announced, I saw a new light that had everything I liked about Union Cross, with the gameplay aspects of a franchise I so much adore. I immersed myself in it, learning as much as I could from official statements down to analyzing story elements, while also learning how to better sell the idea to those adamant about giving it a chance. I thought that streaming it would also offer a bigger perspective on how accessible this game was going to be, I prepared assets, invested in better ways to capture the game, as well as more comfortable methods for me to play it. Even got to rekindle that spark of gaming together with my wife with her, since it's not too easy to get her into games. Now that it's cancelled, I can't really bring myself to come to terms with it. I can accept it from the factual sense, but on the surface, I'll be sad about not being able to share all of these experiences, not just with my streaming audience, but with my friends and family for who knows how long. Try as I might, no game can really fill in that void that this story-driven multiplayer Kingdom Hearts experience would have filled. And now that there isn't something like it, I'm hurt. It hurts! The passion of developers working for it, the community that was created because of it, all those conversations about theories, possible release dates, all of that. It hurts now. No amount of securing us that they're working on Kingdom Hearts 4 can take that hurt away. Square Enix needs to realize how important Missing Link was, both for the franchise now, as well as for the franchise in the future. And it doesn't matter that it was going to be live service, because we would have had ways to better prepare for how the game would be preserved, as well as methods to push Square to eventually make an offline release. But that won't happen now. I'll forever be upset that Missing Link was cancelled. And with all this information at your disposal, so should you. Howdy, post-editing Yup here. I just want to thank you for taking your time to watch this video. If you were adamant on Missing Link and this gave you a different perspective, I'm glad I could have helped with it. Missing Link was a necessary title, and if this video spoke to you, there's a link in the description for a campaign called Operation Relink Missing Link, and details about all the ways you can support the movement are in the provided document. It'd be nice if you could contribute to the cause. A huge apology to DiveHearts. I had no time to ask for permission to use the footage. Go watch DiveHearts' channel, since it's the biggest archival of Missing Link footage in YouTube ever. And all links to his channel are in the description. Once again, sorry. Links to my socials are in the description as well, if you want to follow me. But for now, I'll see you next time on a new adventure. Peace.